Welcome back to another episode of Husker Huddle presented by Sapp Brothers, who say, welcome, be our guest. Today we're lucky enough to be joined by current New York Jet member, former Nebraska Cornhusker wide receiver, Quincy Enunwa. Quincy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Trying to beat the heat down here in Lincoln and keep our heads above water as things seem to be closing back up again. But we want to appreciate you taking the time to catch up and kind of just see what you've been up to lately.
Yeah. Anytime, man. I'm looking forward to the convo.
Awesome. Well, I mean, first of all, what have you been up to? I mean, everyone I've talked to so far this year has a kind of different story. As once things started shutting down in March, I mean, as NFL players, you know, that's usually the time you start kind of ramping your training up, getting back ready to go for OTAs. How have you handled the pandemic, and where have you kind of been stationed at?
Yeah. So, for me, I've been stationed in the same spot, and unfortunately, it's been New Jersey. So. We got hit the hardest. So it was really kind of just me being stuck out here, figuring out how I was going to do my workouts, do my rehab, because this coming season I won't be playing again, another injury. So for me, it's just about just trying to take care of myself the best way possible.
So I know last year you signed a nice deal there, and then you get injured week 1 against the Bills, and that's got to be tough. But, like, how have you been handling that mentally, physically? How are you feeling? Do you feel like you're getting back, or is this something you're just going to really take slow and make sure that you get that neck right?
Yeah, so honestly, I feel good. You know, I feel good physically. The only problem I have is just that anytime I take an MRI, you know, the image isn't exactly what they want it to be. So, you know, I'm just taking it slow. You know, with this year, with another year off, it'll give me another opportunity to just kind of get back to where I need to be at. So, you know, mentally it was tough. You know, when you suffer 2 season-ending injuries, it's always tough on you. You know, we spend our whole lives trying to get to this point, right? And so when it ends when the season ends and it's not the way you want it to end, you know, it's always tough to kind of battle through that. And anybody that's been on IR kind of knows it can be a pretty isolating place, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was put on IR twice, and it's a lonely feeling almost, because you feel like this sense of you're not only letting yourself down, you're letting your team down. And so, I mean, I know you personally, I'm sure you've been handling it well, but I mean, what are some things that you've done, maybe hobbies that you've picked up, or maybe something that you've kind of done to keep yourself busy? I know Luke Kuechly, when I was in Carolina, he actually, when he went on IR for his concussions, he watched YouTube and taught himself magic tricks. So I was just curious, maybe is there anything you've picked up along the way to keep the mind occupied?
Yeah, no magic tricks. I've been doing a lot of reading. I've read so many books now. I feel like I wish I would have done it before. You know, you go through school and everybody tells you, you know, read. And I was so focused on football. I felt as though there was no time to pick up a book and really gain that knowledge. And now I've gotten so much knowledge from the books I've been reading. It's been so helpful, especially during this time. And that's been the biggest thing for me. Other than that, you know, just trying to work on things outside of football. You know, make sure that I'm ready for post football, and if that comes sooner than later.
Yeah, man, I think that's a great plan, and it does seem to happen when you least expect it. I can speak from that for experience. So it's nice to find a spot here at the Husker Sports Network, and let's talk a little Husker football here. Before I want to get your thoughts on all the NFLPA and NFL and talking about COVID, but before we get to that, I'd love to talk a little bit Husker football, man. J.D. Spielman leaves here, who probably would have broke every record as a wide receiver here, which leaves kind of a void here. Going into year 3 systems here for Scott Frost, what are you looking at from this wide receiver room that's really young, unproven, but has a lot of potential coming into it?
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate, man. You know, you look at a guy that has that much talent. You know, in the few games that I watched, you know, he was making plays all the time. So it'll be tough. And I think that, you know, when you look at a guy like Scott Frost, you know, he's a likable guy, and I think that helps him in recruiting, and it'll help him with the players he has right now. I'm hoping, you know, those guys can step up. You know, that's our best bet right now. You know, when you lose a talent like that, you always have to do the next man up. You know, and I think that's something that we preach in football, and I'm hoping that's what we're preaching there as well.
I think that's going to be a big piece for this Huskers offense. I mean, young quarterback coming back who's now, really a leader on this team. You got a solid offensive line. Seems the one question mark is at wide receiver, which when I was here, I was lucky enough, I was looking back at some of our players that we had when we were playing together, Q. I mean, it was you, it was Kenny, Jamal Turner, we had Brandon Kenny. We had such a stacked wide receiver room. It's weird to see a Nebraska team that doesn't just have, guys on deck at that position.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been a little bit of a drop off, since we just had Stanley, so we've had a few guys, and I think that I think guys will show up, and when you have an offense that is capable of putting points on the board, somebody's going to want to put those points on the board, So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Absolutely, me too. But let's get into what is really going on in the topic. And one thing I was really excited that you were on the slate to talk to this week is all we've seen via social media, whether Instagram is Twitter, as NFL players taking their voice and taking it to the platform. I know you're a player rep up there for the New York Jets. And let's talk a little bit about what is going on with players wanting to play, but the NFL and the NFLPA needing to come to an agreement. I think they're coming close to one, but maybe you could give us a little more insight on what that's going to be moving forward here.
Yeah, so, it's a tough position to be in right now. So much uncertainty, so much we don't know. I think that both sides, NFL and NFLPA, are doing our best to kind of come to an agreement that is the safest for everybody, not only the players but their families. As far as I know, we've come to a pretty strong agreement, and we have a phone call actually later today, just to kind of disperse that information and allow us as reps to kind of know exactly where we're at. So I think that it's looking pretty positive.
What is realistic? Not talking, take your PA rep off and just a player's hat on right now. Like, what do you think is realistic for this season? Do you think it'll be season as normal, or do you think we'll see some cancellations? Or I'm very interested to see how the flow of the 2020 NFL season might look like.
Yeah, as a player, right? I don't know. You want to be as optimistic as possible, especially, if I was playing this year, I would definitely want to be as optimistic as possible. You never want to see a season be canceled. I think we all have put in so much work to get to this point right now. And so for that to have been canceled from a virus, that's devastating. I would like to think that the NFL would take care of us as best as possible. And I think it's really going to be about watching what happens with this bubble in the NBA, watching what happens in the NHL. Those would be great examples of like what might happen for us.
Yeah, I think that one thing that you and I were talking about a little bit before the show here was how the NFL is really going to have such a trickle-down effect, because you're seeing it right now, certain college conferences even saying, hey, we're pushing football to the spring, or we're going to have to cancel completely. I really, truly believe that the Power 5 conferences want to play in the fall. I think that they're waiting to see, okay, can the NFL handle it all and then trickle down? What are your thoughts on college football this year? Because it's one thing for the NFL, right? You can pay guys. You can say, hey, if you don't stay in this bubble, you don't stay quarantined, whatever, like you don't get a paycheck. Okay, people are going to do that. Now, you talk college is a whole different animal. You got class. You've got people that you're interacting with nonstop. Do you think that there's a more likelihood of an NFL season or a college season, or do you think they're kind of linked together?
Yeah, I think they're pretty linked. I think the biggest thing, though, that you look at with college is there's no cut downs, right? So you have about 100 guys, and they're there all year. So that's a lot of different people to watch, different people to make sure that they're not doing things that might bring the virus into that bubble. So it's pretty unpredictable, and so I want to say that they're linked, but I think that if we're being smart in this situation, they might want to take more caution than the NFL.
Yeah, what do you think about football in the spring for NFL or college? Personally, my thought on it here is if there's no football in the fall of 2020, there should not be football again until the fall of 2021. I don't know what your thoughts on it. That's just kind of where I've kind of laid my line in the sand with the thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that there's really any necessity for that. In general, now that I've been in the NFL, I don't really see a need for spring football. But if they want to do spring football, I think that they should just cancel this next one if we don't have a fall season.
Yeah, because I think it then becomes a safety issue because then you start talking about, okay, if you have even a spring slash winter season, you're talking what, February through June, and then guys, because the NFL plows ahead, guys that want to go to the NFL, what, finish in June, drafted in June, and then start again in September. It seems like it's just an interesting premise, and I'll be curious to see how it folds out there. But Quincy, what are some things you're looking forward to? I know you wish you were going to be on the field this year, but now that you're off the field, how you're going to maybe try and be a leader, or some different ways you might try and implement yourself in that Jets locker room this year. I knew you were a team captain. I know you are a team captain. How are some things you're going to implement this year different now that you're not on the field for the 2020 season?
Yeah, so this being my second year in a row, now being off, I think that last year it was tough. I had to kind of adjust. Especially getting a new contract, it was like, all right, I'm gonna show everybody I deserve this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've done exactly what I need to do. So when that first injury happened, I kind of like fell to the back and stayed away from the team. I think this year coming up, I definitely want to be more involved, be a voice, make sure that I'm passing on any knowledge that I have to guys, young guys. We drafted a receiver, and just trying to be as helpful as possible. Especially right now, where there's so much uncertainty, so many things that people are going to have to get used to on the fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So have any off season, didn't get a chance to really learn the playbook while running routes with the coaches on the field. So you're going to have to learn fast. And so I think for me, just having that experience that I've had being in the league for 6 going on 7 years, I want to at least be able to pass it on to guys so that, they can get up to speed as fast as possible.
Quincy, I just want to say thank you again for joining us here on Husker Huddle, presented by Sapp Brothers. Sapp Brothers' top priority is to keep guests and teammates safe. Sapp Brothers offering full service at the pump as our nation relies now more than ever on drivers and farmers to provide essentials to our communities. Sapp Brothers is committed to serving you. Quincy, as we let you go here, man, anything else you want to say to Husker Nation? We're excited we got a chance to get caught back up with you. We're excited to hopefully see you again on the football field in 2021. Any class remarks here before we let you go?
I'm just keep it simple, man. Go Big Red.